You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, for the second time tonight, we are going to be bringing you an episode here, but this time, unlike our last episode where we were going over the possibility of the Royals signing a guy like, trading for a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, we're going to be talking about an actual move, and that would be the Royals signing outfielder Lane Thomas to a one-year deal worth $5.25 million. It does fill the need of their platoon bat that we had heard so much about. So if you guys have thoughts on this outfield signing, you certainly can, hop on our comment section here, leave whatever you want to say. I would ask that you keep it PG so that, everybody else can read these on the bottom corner of the screen, and I don't get in trouble for having curse words or anything negative, or too negative, I should say. Not that you have to be overly positive about this signing. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about a guy that played in 39 games last year for the Guardians and only hit 160. So not a lot to talk about when it comes to his 2025 season. But truth be told, guys, this move makes a lot of sense for a variety of reasons. And the first I had heard of Lane Thomas actually coming to Kansas City was from David Leske. David Leske had put out on his newsletter that he always does, Inside the Crown, phenomenal work over there. In his article on being J.J. Picollo for a day, one of the platoon bats that he had brought in was Lane Thomas on a one-year deal. And the reason it makes sense for a variety of reasons, you have the previous interest in 2024 around the trade deadline, but Cleveland's the one that actually gets that deal done. And then he goes on to be their postseason hero, had the grand slam in Game 5 off Tarek Skubal. But other than that, the numbers were rather pedestrian with Cleveland. They were pretty dang good with the Nationals before he was dealt over. And then last year, you kind of can chalk that up to just an injury-ridden season. He had plantar fasciitis, missed 3 to 4 months. I mean, you can absolutely say that last year you were taking into account that for what he could be in 2026. You could say injuries, wasn't very good when he was healthy, poor defender, I don't like this signing at all. You can take that approach to it. On the other side of it, you can take the larger body of work. Because I'm just not somebody that will put a ton into 40 games, no matter who the player is. We have seen guys go on a tear for 40 games and then tail off, in the next 60. We have seen guys look really poor in the first 40 games of the season and then look really great for the next 100 games. So we know in baseball, 40 games is just not that large of a sample size. And so I'll probably refer to his career numbers. And so we talked before about platoon bats, guys that could mash lefties. Because J.J. Picollo had said, you need to go out there and get, a right-handed bat to complement Caglione. We knew they were looking for a guy that could play a little bit of center field, hence their interest in Jake Myers, Harrison Bader as well. And the good thing about Lane Thomas is he can play all three positions. In right field is where he was a Gold Glove finalist in 2023. Now, I will say this. His defensive metrics have fluctuated a little bit. I probably jumped the gun on calling him a good defender. But if you go to his Baseball Savant page right now, it's going to say that he had horrible range. And, the only thing he really was positive in defensively was he has a really good arm. And that's always been a constant for a guy like Lane Thomas. But he played center field for the Guardians. And I feel of the platoon options that were still out there, he was your best chance to take over center field against lefties. Because Kyle Isbell's going to be on this roster. And last year we saw a number of games where Tyler Tolbert's in center, Dairon Blanco was out there. Now you have somebody that can not only platoon for Jack Caglione if need be, and I would say that best case scenario, Caglione doesn't need a platoon bat, but he can be the platoon guy for center field. And who knows, if Lane Thomas looks really good early on in the year and Kyle Isbell doesn't, now you've got your new center fielder and you got him for $5 million. So the money is not a big deal here. If you're somebody out there saying, well, they should have used that $5 million elsewhere, they're going to be able to still get what they want in free agency. And to me, they need another utility guy off the bench kind of screams Adam Frazier to me, and they need a left-handed reliever. But make no mistake about it, because I saw a few people, bringing up that, this is what they pivot to, right? We're talking about Duran and Donovan and Teoscar Hernandez, and now they're pivoting to Lane Thomas. This was not their goal in signing Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas fits one need and one need only. That's your platoon situation. And I actually did some more digging. I had the numbers in front of me. Lane Thomas, over the course of his career, has been really, really impressive against lefties. In fact, the total numbers here, in 307 games against lefties, he's hit 292 with a 359 OBP, a 500 slug, and 859 OPS. So that's over the course of his career. That, to me, is a larger sample size than the 39 games he played in 2025. To me, I can chalk that up to injury. And even in 2024, it's not like he was lighting up the world, but he was a league average bat. In fact, he was exactly a league average bat. He had a 100 OPS plus. That's, by definition, the league average. And he was fine defensively. You plug that into the Royals outfield, even as a platoon option, you got some good value there. And so I compared that to Austin Hayes, right? Austin Hayes is somebody the Royals were interested in, but after seeing the deal that Mike Yastrzemski signed, I would not be surprised in the slightest if Austin Hayes is looking for a very similar deal. Because Austin Hayes has the leverage of, I had a better year than Lane Thomas, and I had a better year than Mike Yastrzemski. And I'm not as awful against right-handed pitching as Mike Yastrzemski is against lefties. So I would say that, and by the way, Shane, I need you to keep it PG here on the comment section, or else I'm going to get in trouble. So if you're cursing here on the comment section, it's on the screen, and therefore I could get in some big time trouble for my bosses here. So again, I would say, everybody, if you're really upset on this deal, please do not be cursing in the comment section. That's only going to, come back to bite me and not you. But again, this is about a platoon bat. And Lane Thomas has good numbers against lefties, as all the other guys they were looking at for a platoon situation. So Austin Hayes might have been in discussions with the Royals, and he said, I want a 2-year deal worth $25 million. And if you're the Royals, do you want to give that to a platoon player? As I said, this is a one-time move where I feel you can just look past the numbers in 2025. Even if you could look at the numbers against lefties and they weren't that great, right? If they weren't that great and you just wanted to move past it, it is a 1-year deal worth $5 million. It's a guy who's not going to play a ton. He's going to be facing lefties. That's what you signed him for. And now the focus pivots to getting a everyday left fielder. And I feel very confident that even with the signing of Lane Thomas, you are going to be going after the guy that plays 140 to 150 games. So this does not persuade that in any way, shape, or form. To me, this came down to the platoon options they were looking at wanted larger deals than Lane Thomas did. And I see Greg here in the comment section is saying no sound. Is everybody else able to hear me? I feel that my mic is on here. It says that my mic is on. So I guess I'll keep moving forward unless we have multiple other people saying that there's no sound here. So again, Shane, I'm going to have to tell you, man, to stop cursing in the comment section, or it's going to be hurting me in a big way. I might, unfortunately, then, have some issues in being able to do this podcast if we're going to have cursing here in the comment section here. So again, I'm asking everybody, while I'm doing this live show, we never do live shows, keep it PG in the comment section, or my boss is going to be very upset with me. Again, if you're mad about this move, I know you can look at the numbers for what he did, but against left-handers, the numbers are undeniable in a larger body of work. You're looking at somebody that has an OPS north of 850 against lefties. You're looking at a guy like Austin Hayes, who had good numbers against lefties and good numbers, last year, better numbers than Lane Thomas. Most of these outfielders had better numbers than Lane Thomas. And, I wanted to see them get one move done before the end of the week. I really did. And I would have preferred for it to not be I would prefer for it to not happen as I hit the post button on my Teoscar Hernandez episode. But I did want to give you guys a little something here because I know we have the mailbag episode tomorrow, and we'll be talking about it a little bit more. I'm sure you guys will be having some questions, but this is purely about finding that upgrade from the right side. The Royals didn't have that in September. You guys can all recognize that. You guys can look at what Nick Lofton was able to do against lefties. You saw what Randall Grichuk was able to do against lefties. And I can also see the negative side to it. What if Lane Thomas shows up to spring training and he's not healthy, or he gets hurt at some point and he puts together exactly what he did in 2024? I mean, yeah, you can say that it's a one-year deal, move on, find somebody else that can fit that need. But this feels that they're going to roll the dice a little bit on a platoon option over maybe spending too much on an Austin Hayes or a Rob Refsnyder. Now, there was never any report out there that the right-handed bat in Rob Refsnyder was linked to the Royals. The only other guy that we heard was Austin Hayes. I'm sure they were looking in the trade route. That's why Jake Myers came to mind. And I really would have only seen Jake Myers as a platoon option, even though he played in 300-plus games for the Astros. But truth be told, this feels like a cheaper option. And if it works out for them, you could be getting better value than you would with Austin Hayes, right? Austin Hayes, to me, has that upper hand of going to a team to get a multi-year deal and to be maybe an everyday player. There could be somebody out there that's not going to be that competitive that's willing to give Austin Hayes a 2-year deal and every day at bats. If I'm Austin Hayes and I am going into this realm of free agency, I would like to get that multi-year deal. If Mike Yastrzemski could get one at age 35 for the numbers that he put up, then I would say that Austin Hayes could do that, if not better. He's younger than Mike Yastrzemski. He can hit right-handed pitching a little bit better, and that's why I'd imagine, as I repeated myself a little bit, that's why I imagine the Royals turn to someone like Lane Thomas. He can play all 3 outfield spots. If he does perform well and looks good early on in the season, and he's not a disaster against right-handed pitching, he could be your replacement for Kyle Isbell if the numbers were not going to work out. But to reiterate this again, I feel that there are 4 boxes they need to check. And I know a couple people are looking here in the comment section asking, are they still going to make a move? Yes, I do believe that to be the case. And, JJ Picola wouldn't have gone out and said, we want to add a free agent. We want to add a bat via trade. And that trade option appears to be more of the everyday player they're looking for. But is it going to be a 3-team trade? We talked about that in our Teoscar Hernandez episode of, you got to get another team involved here. Do you want to find a guy that can, be your impact bat, your middle of the order bat? And do you want to do it without giving up a Noah Cameron or a Cole Reagans? So that becomes the top. It still is the top priority. Let's all be honest here. It's the top priority here. And then you've got Lane Thomas, the platoon bat they needed, as maybe the second thing there. Third would be the left-handed bullpen arm. And then the fourth option would be, in my opinion, the Royals have not come out and said this, I would like to have another utility option off the bench that can play a little bit of the infield and a little bit of the outfield here. If you are upset by it, I'm seeing that there are some comments here. You're not sold, Greg. I know you're saying you're not sold on it. The only way I can sell you on it is that in his career, his entire career, he's been very impressive against lefties. He has a large body of work against lefties, and he's better against lefties in his career than Austin Hayes and Rob Refsnyder. And if I look at that and I just take that answer for what they got, I feel that doesn't erase what he did in 2025. But the easy thing for us to all say is, well, it was 39 games and he was hurt. And by this, by this instance, I would say that he might have been hurt for the entirety of the season, or he was fighting through it and the numbers weren't there. But you got somebody that can play all 3 outfield spots. He can be that right-handed option for Kyle Isbell and Jack Caglione, and you got him for cheap. So I guess I would leave everybody with this question, because I feel next up now is trying to find that everyday bat. And once you get the everyday bat, you might be able to, maybe take a step back and feel much better about what JJ Picollo and this front office have done in the offseason. It does come down to, though, what is the best fit for the Royals, or who is the best fit for the Royals? Is that Duran? Is that Donovan? Is that Hernandez? What are the prices on all those guys? That's yet really to be fully revealed. We know other teams are interested in Reagans and Cameron, but are you able to get the bat you need, an impact bat, and not have to give up way too much? That's why I believe it's taking a little bit longer. But I did feel that you checked the box on a platoon bat. And to all of you out there, would you rather be right now, or where you are right now, with Lane Thomas, a one-year deal worth $5 million? I brought up the numbers against left-handed pitching. Or would you rather it be a 2-year deal worth $24-25 million for Rob Refsnyder or Austin Hayes? These are the two moves, in my opinion, that would have been the alternative in looking for a platoon bat. I would constantly go over the free agent list, who would really be out there. Would you rather have Lane Thomas on the 1-year, $5 million deal, bank on he's going to do what he's done his entire career against lefties in 2026? Or would you rather go with the Rob Refsnyder route, who's 34, Austin Hayes is 30, I believe? You give those guys the multi-year deal north of $10 million. Because I'm going off the Yastrzemski deal. You've got the Lane Thomas deal. You've got the Mike Yastrzemski deal. If Mike Yastrzemski can get a multi-year deal north of $10 million, Austin Hayes can absolutely get that. And same with Rob Refsnyder. To me, Lane Thomas was the only one that couldn't get that based on what he did last year. You hit 160 and you played in 39 games. Nobody in their right mind is going to give you $25 million a year. And that's where I feel the Royals pivoted to. But again, if you're going to go this route and you're going to say no to Rob Refsnyder, no to Austin Hayes, because Austin Hayes very well could be a safer bet based on what he did last year. If you're just pulling from those numbers, you could say Austin Hayes is a safer bet here, and you can go and get that guy to play 100 to 110 games a year. I'm really only asking Lane Thomas to do the same thing games-wise, unless he just proves he's far better than Kyle Isbell. I would not prefer him to be better than Jack Caglione. I would hope Jack Caglione takes the right field spot, and then you can just turn to center field. And also maybe the best case scenario is you've got a guy like Lane Thomas who can't play against righties, but he mashes lefties, because that's been his theme of his major league career. It's why Cleveland took a chance on him at the trade deadline, and he had another year of control. The Royals were very interested in that. They know they need to have an upgrade offensively, and they know they need to have somebody that can be a threat off the bench from the right side. Can Lane Thomas be that? They certainly believe so. I'm not going to go as far to call this a home run move, because you can't, based off how much you spent on him and what he did last year. So really, in summary here, it is how you view a body of work. That would maybe be the theme of what I'd even title this episode. Is Lane Thomas somebody that you look at his career and go, that's a good move for the Royals, good value? Or is this where you say, that's bad on them for spending $5 million on a guy that hit 160 in 39 games? There are two schools of thought. There are two ways to go about it here. I don't know if we need to get too up in arms for a platoon guy. If the Royals go and botch their move for an everyday outfielder, then we're going to have a much bigger discussion here. But from my viewpoint, I'm glad we have somebody to talk about here. I'm glad we have somebody that we know is going to be on the big league roster, assuming healthy. And this is a guy that I feel when they entered the offseason, they had their sights set on in their top 3 preferences for platoon bats. And you wanted to have somebody that didn't just have a pop-up year against lefties. You wanted to have 4 to 5 years of showing that he's capable of hitting left-handed pitching. And if they face a left-hander on opening day against the Braves, which I imagine it'll be Spencer Strider, assuming he's healthy, then he's not going to be in the opening day lineup over Kyle Isbell. That was the goal, though. That is why JJ Picollo did this deal, cheaper than the other options. And we'll certainly see here what Austin Hayes and Rob Refsnyder end up getting. And I'll give you this. If you're on the side of hate this move, I never want to see him on the roster, never want to see him getting it back, we'll see what Ref Snyder and Austin Hayes get. But based on the Royals pulling the trigger on Lane Thomas, when those two guys are available, that leads me to believe they have a multi-year deal on the table, or they have far more than $5 million. Because that's why, I feel with Mike Yastrzemski, he didn't necessarily set the market for platoon bats, because I feel Atlanta's going to play him every day in left field. But he is going to be that guy that these other platoon options are going to try to match, if not get higher than. So appreciate all the comments that you guys have been giving here. We got up to 75 viewers. I never do live episodes, but moving forward, if we finish an episode and I don't want to have to do the whole thing over and edit the episode, we'll probably just jump in and do a makeshift live episode here on some breaking news. But that was the big news of tonight. Hope you guys liked this quick little 20 to 25 minute episode here on Lane Thomas signing with the Royals. That now puts their 40-man roster at 39. And now there are 3 more boxes to check, in my opinion. You got to get the everyday left fielder. You got to be able to get the bullpen arm, especially from the left side. And then you got to be able to get one more utility bet off the bench. Maybe that's Adam Frazier, or maybe you're looking for another guy that can hit from the right side, because I feel that really came back to bite the Royals in the ass late in the season. So I can clearly see everybody's comments here on what they think of the move. If you missed any of this or you're joining late, don't worry. I'll be posting this on the YouTube page here shortly. And we'll be back tomorrow with our Mailbag Friday. So if you didn't get your question in yet, definitely leave it below here on this video. But until tomorrow, you guys take it easy.